And so, but with that, let's, Mark, if you can click to the next slide. I want to make a formal announcement. I know a lot of you have heard, but Mark Weinberger has been promoted to be the new Supervisory Grants Management Specialist. We are so happy to have Mark in this role. He has served, he and I actually came on our first days or the very same day back in January 2023, and he has served very much as my right hand as the a grants management specialist for these 2+ years that we've been here together. Prior to working with the OST office as a grants manager, he served as a contractor with the Institute for Youth Development. So knew many of you as he went out and conducted site visits, quality assessment, um, evaluations, etc., for the Institute and conducted training. So it's very well versed in quality and also in OST programming itself, because Mark used to run an organization that was an OST grantee all the way back to the days of the trust, which predated our office. So Mark has been around and is very well versed in out of school time and grant management. And we are so excited to have him serve as the new supervisory grants management specialist. Yes, round of applause for Mark. It's well deserved. And so I want to formally hand over the baton and have Mark take over.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for the kind words and introduction. It's definitely been an eventful, exciting 2+ years here, and very excited to continue supporting the work of high school time grantees and MADC grantees as we continue to serve the youth of the district. So,
I
welcome
should tell
everyone.
everyone real quick. I'm going to
Yeah,
interrupt. Mark is not been feeling well, and so he is here, doing his best as he always does. But again, thank you, Mark, and applaud him that despite being under the weather, he is doing his best to again formally take the baton.
thank you, Shannon. Yeah, I'm pushing through, everyone. We're here together. Um, well, yeah, thank you again. Definitely very excited to support everyone in this new capacity. It's been a pleasure to work alongside many of you all in many different capacities as your grant manager and or supporting background check processes or other aspects of OSC office related duties. We're looking forward and looking at the road ahead as we continue to support the youth and families of the district. And without further ado, I'm going to get underway with today's presentation. With just a couple reminders here today, as you all might know about me right now or the grant management specialist team, we want to make sure everyone is well versed in planning ahead to make sure that their organization is solvent, adhering to OSD office compliance, but also DC government basic business compliance. And this is just a general reminder, but it does pop up from time to time because organizations' basic business license expiration dates will kind of circulate based on when you initially established that license, and that renewal should be prioritized by your organization. And it can be executed up to 90 days prior to the expiration date. And just one thing to note, there are some pretty hefty late fees if you happen to miss your expiration date. So we want to just provide this knowledge for you all just to be well versed and to plan ahead so that you won't incur any extraneous late fees and that your organization is solvent and continue to do the good work that you do operating out of school time programs. So if your basic business license is due for renewal, please ensure that you engage this process and that you confirm you have a My DC Business Center account established and that you renew at mybusiness.dc.gov. So your grants management specialist should provide you reminders as you're getting close to expiration. We just want to send this reminder once more collectively to ensure that this is at the top of your priorities. Let's say your basic business license is due to expire this summer. Just make sure that you take note of the date, take note of the website, the process, and just make sure you're proactive so that you do not incur any late fees. And we will have time for question and answer at the end of today's presentation, so just want to make sure everyone is well aware. As another reminder, we're getting close to the end of the school year program period. And with that note, we are approaching our SAOI end of school year surveys. Now, the end of school year surveys should be facilitated within the final 6 weeks of the school year program to all eligible youth with SAOI consent on file. And so please note that in order for those links to generate, you have to make sure that all youth whose parents or guardians have confirmed consent, that that consent is confirmed within their youth participant profile in CSpan. In addition, that youth participant profile must be completed. So all other pertinent data, which we'll get into in a second in the next slide, should be completed, and then that profile must be submitted. Initially, the submission function was rolled out last year during FY24, and this year it is a critical required function to ensure that your organization gets credit for every youth that is served. So just please make sure that your profile is submitted, and then of course enrolled in activities so that you can submit attendance. And 1 day of attendance is required in order for those SAOI links to automatically generate. And just so everyone is aware, you might see that, oh, you had young people complete the survey in the fall and you see the same link. That's those same links, once they have consent, are consistent, and they will be updated by date once they complete a new survey. So please do not be turned off or think that something is inaccurate or there's a technical issue afoot. It's more so that those survey links auto-generate specifically to those youth who have those consent on file and of course are enrolled in activities, profile submitted, and attendance is submitted for at least 1 day. And then they can complete the survey. And then please just make sure that they submit the survey when done. So it's possible they might end up missing a question. We do encourage young people to complete all questions, and it is a best practice for OST staff to kind of monitor youth to make sure they're just completing the survey in a correct process. So just please make sure that your team, your program management team, are prioritizing the survey process, because it is a very informative survey. And once completed, when you have over 10 youth complete the survey, of course, you will have a very informative report generated so you can identify the presence of youth voice and see how youth perceive your program, understand their feedback in areas in which your program excel and areas in which your program can improve based upon that youth voice input. As I noted earlier, youth data. So this is a burgeoning area of importance as we want to ensure accurate citywide reporting, and we want to ensure that grantees are serving the populations they propose to serve within their initial grant agreements. And also, this data can benefit your programs to tailor your programs to suit the needs of young people, to suit the needs of your participants if there are demographic concerns or academic concerns and or areas in which they're excelling, and that you can help shift the program if you saw that they might have excelled in the area of reading literacy performance or statewide scores for math performance. There's a lot of really highly relevant and informative data that comes about from our relationship with OSSI and DCBS, in which we engage data sharing practices. So just please note, in order to have such data be updated and to demonstrate data compliance, we do reiterate the value of FERPA consent, which should be included in all enrollment registration forms, as it's much easier to proactively attain FERPA consent than retroactively, later on in the year. So please make sure to indicate within those youth participant profiles that consent has been affirmed for FERPA. And then if you do want to see that individual youth data, you must upload the signed FERPA consent forms within those youth participant profiles. And then for some general tips for increasing your mask rates, please ensure that the name, the actual complete legal name of that young person and the address of that youth participant is completely accurate. We understand that sometimes there's discrepancies and where a parent, one guardian might give a different address to a school, different address to a provider. So we always recommend that you check in with your partner schools, partner organizations, and or youth and families to ensure that you have accurate information that's on file and that what's being presented to the school is what you have within your records. And then also the Universal Student ID numbers, which represent their overall Universal Student ID presence in the District of Columbia. LEA numbers are more so school specific. So attaining that Universal Student ID number and incorporating their youth profile will ensure high rate of matching. So it's possible you might not even have everything updated in their profile, but you have that USI, and that USI can help firm a data match with OSSI, and then therefore You'll see what's evident within their demographics and their academic performance, their school attendance, and so forth. So there is a USI field within youth participant profiles as you complete the intake. So you can work with the partner school and or the families. And many times older youth, high school age youth have knowledge of these USIs. So putting those USIs within youth participant profiles will help increase the rate for data matching. And then you'll see this evidently within your progress reports as well across proposed areas for demographics that you propose to serve within your grant agreements. And then enrollment, of course, ensuring that all active youth profiles are completed and submitted, as I stated. We want to ensure that accuracy across all the data that you represent can uphold citywide data, and of course, represent your organization as serving the youth that you propose to serve. We want to make sure you get credit for all the youth that you propose and are actively serving, of course. So ensuring that all active youth are enrolled in activities is critical. And then, of course, as noted, FERPA consent as well as SAOI consent is confirmed within those youth participant profiles. Now, of course, you cannot force a family member to provide FERPA consent. However, you can make your best effort to at least communicate, provide transparency, and work with families to encourage them to provide FERPA consent, as ultimately it will benefit their child. It will help shape your program, and it will help promote developmental outcomes for your young person in terms of across the board, whether it is critical thinking, all the different developmental outcomes, and of course your measurable objectives that you seek to accomplish within your organization. And then, of course, attendance accuracy. Uh, Submitting attendance for all enrolled youth on a weekly basis, unless you have a prearranged agreement with your grants management specialist. And then, of course, being certain to drop youth from enrollment who are no longer actively intending. So this is another practice that we do impart and that we do recommend you consult with your grants management specialist to understand you're active in monitoring your attendance records. And if a young person has stopped attending your program a month prior because they had soccer or dance since taking place in the spring, then you want to drop them from enrollment. And this helps promote more accurate average weekly attendance, and you'll see your weekly attendance rates listed in your progress report templates. And then, of course, deleting dates on which zero youth attended. Quite often when you create your schedule for your activities, you'll have dates created from maybe September through May, and it's very possible that you'll have holidays, program closure, professional development days for DCPS, and then you'll have zero youth in attendance. And this can, of course, impact your average weekly attendance rates. So by deleting those dates from your schedule on which no program occurred, that helps reflect a more accurate, record of attendance based upon the youth actively enrolled and actively attending the program. All right, and then the portal. So many of you all might be aware of the My Out of School Time DC portal. Many of you might have been contacted by our colleague Tab Burnett, who's the project manager overseeing the portal development, rollout, and implementation across the district to benefit youth and families throughout the district. So as a result of this new portal, this exciting new website that everyone is really uh, jumped up about, and we'll have time for questions after we get through our presentation. Uh, Ultimately, the portal is supposed to be a one-stop shop for parents, guardians, families to browse, show interest, and apply for out-of-school time programs through this online mechanism to simplify the process so they can identify, locate programs that are within close proximity to their residents, their neighborhood, the schools in which their youth attend. So it is essential for out-of-school time office grantees to support this portal and to provide a couple different follow-up steps in which you actively engage the portal, such as a point of contact for portal administrative duties, to attend at least one training to understand how the portal operates, how you can get actively registered because there is a licensure process, and to navigate the portal's administrative system. And then once you are engaged with the portal, there will be opportunities to engage with parents, interests, to collect information on your program. And it is required and recommended that OST providers are responsive to parents' interests and to follow up with parents, because this is largely going to provide a public display of your organization. This is going to provide a lot of public visibility for your organization, which will hopefully amplify your presence in the district and expand your reach. So there will be potential other MOST DC portal related trainings that might arise throughout the year, and our project manager, Tab Burnett, will certainly contact you about any such trainings. But ultimately, the portal is intended for you all to use as a recruitment tool, as well as kind of instrument for marketing for your organization to promote program expansion. And whether you're at a cap right now and you don't have capacity, you can still utilize the portal for general awareness as your presence. We know that a lot of organizations right now are looking for alternative funding streams, wanting to develop more partnerships and collaborative entities. So the portal is going to definitely be provide some networking capacity as well as public visibility for your organization. So please just note that our colleague Tab Burnett has sent out portal correspondence, and to ensure that at least one point of contact for your organization has been responsive and will attend a training to get adequately registered and then actively engage with the portal. All right. With that said, we're going to segue into our presentation for today. Today, we have a special guest, the PD Green program, which some of you might be familiar with, who is a coordinating entity grantee from the OST office, who supports young people who are in the juvenile justice system. And they're going to provide a truly insightful presentation on best practices for cultural responsiveness and how to engage with young people in that school time program format. And so when we think about cultural responsiveness, we want to think about inclusivity and the focus on positive youth development. And we know that young people face a lot of different challenges. And specifically with the population that PD Green serves, there are a lot of things that we need to take into context, into cultural context, and into relative context. And so by prioritizing cultural identities, varying perspectives, and those critical youth adult relationships, peer mentor relationships, utilizing a strong focus on a welcoming and respectful environment for all youth within that program, and then exploring power and privilege dynamics to better understand the different kind of behind the scenes elements that might persist in a program that which can certainly impact a young person's psyche and their engagement in the program. And then, of course, identify and address various issues for equality and equity that can impact youth and promote greater outcome achievement. And with that said, we're going to pass the baton. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We have our special guest, Ms. Chiara Benatello, who is going to present on behalf of the PD Green program today. So Chiara, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. I am going to share my screen if I can manage it. Actually, yes. Are you seeing my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can see it, just not in the slideshow yet.
Okay, thank you. I don't know why I'm not seeing it, but I will trust that you all are seeing the right slide. And
yes, Chiara, do you want to click slide?
I don't know why I'm not seeing this.
It's okay. We can see it. Can you click slideshow?
Yes. That I can do. Okay.
It works. We can see it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much for welcoming us in this space. We're really excited to share some of the practices that we have adopted to make sure that our facilitators, our tutors, everybody who's engaged in our out of school time program is culturally responsive. And in particular, we will focus today on our trainings, because I think that is really at the root of how do you ensure that you have people who are prepared to serve incarcerated youth in a way that is truly engaging and inclusive for them. And I am joined here today by my colleagues, Emma Morrissey, our Director of Curriculum and Training, and Raymond Rodriguez, who is our DC Division Manager. Leslie Lewis couldn't make it, but she's with us in spirit, and she's our DC regional manager. Also want to give a shout out to Norma Danaraj, who used to be our DC regional manager and has collaborated to the development of a lot of the resources that we will be sharing. So we will start just telling you a little bit about the PD Green program, and we'll talk about how do we define correct cultural responsiveness, and again, like I was saying, focusing on our training. How did we develop it? What are some of the outcomes that we that we have? Because I think that is really the secret sauce that we have to make sure that our programs are inclusive and effective. And I will pass it to my colleague Ray to share more about who we are as an organization.
Hey, good morning, everybody. As Kiara mentioned, I am Ray. I'm the DC division manager, and I will briefly be discussing a little bit more of the PD Green program. All right. So the PD Green program has actually been doing this work for over 15 years now, and we're now the largest multi-state provider of individualized educational support for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated learners in the U.S. All right, so just a little bit of our mission. So the PGP is a national nonprofit organization, and we support incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people through high quality tutoring while also educating our volunteers on the manifest justice systems. So with that said, for our volunteers, we recruit, we interview, we train them, we place them, and we support hundreds of tutors across the country to provide the high quality services for learners inside of prisons, jails, and other reentry settings. All right, so since our founding in 2008, we've supported over 20,000 students across 130 sites. We've placed more than 8,500 volunteers, and many of our students come from one of our 37 partner universities. Here in DC, we're partnered with Howard University, George Washington, University of Maryland, and American University. So just speaking a little bit of our national reach. So the PGP currently provides direct tutoring services to students in 6 states and the District of Columbia. So our program includes a wide range of topics from tutoring support and basic literacy and math courses for high school students, college bridge programs, college coursework, and many more. And we also provide training on topics such as reentry, trauma-informed practice, and educational justice. And these trainings are also designed for our volunteer tutors, any partner organizations that we may be partnered with, and just the PGP community as a whole.
And in DC, some of you may know us as the coordinating entity for out-of-school programming for youth in the care of DC, a role that we have we're very happy to have held for the past few years. In this role, we serve more than 300 youth a year across 3 correctional facilities, all the facilities where youth in the care of DC are housed. And we offer tutoring, hands-on science demonstrations, and we engage subcontractors who offer programs in sports, arts, music, and much more. And by the way, we'll talk more about this at the end, but we do have an open RFP for subcontractors who may be interested in working with us for the summer. So please stay tuned for that if you're interested in collaborating with us in that capacity and getting some funding for the summer.
Okay. I'm going to jump in here to talk a little bit about how we train culturally responsive facilitators. You can go to the next slide, Kiara. I really appreciated the definition that we had about cultural responsiveness right before our presentation here. So just to add a couple of other elements to that definition. One in particular is that cultural responsiveness and a culturally responsive practice is part of trauma-informed practice. And so we at the PD Green program believe that we cannot provide a high quality service without providing a trauma-informed practice. So that is another reason why we are really focused on including cultural responsiveness in all of our trainings for our volunteer tutors and our out-of-school time facilitators. And something, we talked about at the beginning, the definition about exploring privilege and power and discussing that. We at the PD Green program know that being culturally responsive also means learning more about the context and history of the learning environment, how power and privilege play into that, thinking about what barriers or challenges a student may have encountered either currently or historically. And so at the PD Green program, when we are working on supporting our tutors and our facilitators to be more culturally responsive in their practice, we talk about the carceral state, about mass incarceration, prisons, reentry as sort of key elements of the environment that we all need to learn more about in order to provide a culturally responsive and high quality service. So that's sort of a little bit more about how we approach that with all of our participants in our community. Cool. And a little bit more information about how we developed our training. So you can go to the next slide, Kiara. So thinking about sort of where we started when we were developing this training. So we have a training, which we'll talk more about and outline a little bit more of, a training for our volunteer tutors and also a training for our out of school time facilitators. And when starting to develop both of these trainings, I thought through this list of questions, which, you'll have these slides afterwards. If, I definitely recommend if you're starting to think about developing a new training, maybe considering some of these questions in that process. But first thinking about sort of what does a high quality service look like in your work. We did that at the PD Green program by getting feedback from students, tutors, PD Green program staff, PD Green program partners, and developing a definition of high quality tutoring that we use as like a foundation for all of our training, a vision for the outcomes of all of our training and programming as well. So definitely recommend starting there and then sort of building from there, thinking about who are the training participants, what strengths and expertise and knowledge are they bringing into the space, and what can you add when you're developing a training to further support them. What additional support might they need before they start programming? Thinking too about what you are hoping a training participant is going to be need to know or be able to do before they start programming. And then thinking too a little bit more about like what additional research expertise and perspectives do you need to develop the training. So I think one thing that's really exciting about PD Green program's approach to training is that it's a really collaborative process, and we have PD Green program staff from across our organization participate in facilitating the training. Facilitators like Ray, Norma also facilitated when she was with the PD Green program too for the out of school time training. So folks who have expertise in the programs that tutors, facilitators are going into, and also we have facilitators who have lived experience who are sharing that expertise with participants in our program too. Also thinking about what resources would be helpful, making sure that folks have access to resources before, during, and after the training. They can take that with them. Thinking about how much time you need for the training, also what the best time of year, even the best time of day is for that training. And then also, like I mentioned, who the best person to facilitate the training is.
And so to kick us into the meat of perhaps the presentation, I actually want to ask a question to you all who are joining us here. I'm curious to hear more about how do you manage trainings in your organization. I know the OST office also offers a variety of trainings, and many of us are taking advantage of. So who attends trainings in your organization? Is that staff? Are those your frontline facilitators, your volunteers, if you have any? And do people in different positions attend different trainings, or do you have a standard training for everybody?
I guess I'll go first. My short answer is yes to all of those questions. So sometimes we do it as a program or as a division where everyone has to attend a certain training. Sometimes it may just be certain people attend certain trainings depending on what type of OST program they're in, what might be applicable to the work that they're actually doing. And then we also have a senior volunteer service. So some of our volunteers will be now definitely attending some of those trainings because they're in DC public schools. So like the neurodivergent training, those are, well, working with special populations, those are definitely trainings that they need to attend, and just like conscious disciplining, that kind of thing. So it depends, but yes, everyone attends those Learn 24 training, at least at UPO.
Thank you. Thank you. And I saw someone else in the chat mention that their staff attends trainings as a division. Anyone else wants to share their experience?
Yeah, I'm with After School Stars, we do a lot of trainings throughout the year, leveraging different things. Do we start with a really week-long training at the beginning for everybody, all the full-time and part-time staff. In August, it's a week of, 5 days, of training, program orientation, but we also have policies and all sorts of things that people need to know to be grounded in the program. And there are, we use some of the Weicker Center, modules to, talk about classroom management, those things that are very applicable, for them. We leverage the Learn 24 Institute for, taking advantage of several other things, but basically there are trainings available for our staff every day. There is no after school, because it's a double benefit. The revenue will continue for them because they're hourly wages, but also is professional development. And then we do different kind of training. Like, for example, this year I have two people on staff that have taken the training with the Mental Health First Aid Institute to become trainers, so that, to bring in that expertise, to recognize mental crisis in youth and knowing what to do, knowing to whom to refer to. So there is basic training, and then there is training that is almost ad hoc, when we find different issues or problems or emerging, I go and trying to find some training, and then I send always usually 2 or 3 people to conferences, out of state conferences.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate that model. Indeed, we have a very similar model at the PD Green program, with an initial everybody in the organization attends what I'm calling a big picture training, like Emma was sharing. We think it's really important in order to form culturally responsive facilitators that people really know well, and in a nuanced way, what is the environment that they are working on, what is the historic background that led us to the current mass incarceration, but more broadly, how do we see our role within the carceral state? We talk about educational justice, and I think that is really key. It may seem a little bit more detached from the day-to-day practices and the strategies that people need to utilize, but I would really recommend, as you're developing and refining our trainings, to take that into account, to think deeply and to communicate explicitly with your staff and your facilitators. What is the environment in which they're working? And then we have specialized trainings for our tutors, for our instructors, and for our subcontractors, or OST facilitators. The tutor training is focused on tutoring pedagogy. The instructor training and the subcontractor training, kind of assume that both of those types of figures already know how to teach, they know how to facilitate. So what we are teaching them is much more how to transfer those skills in the specific environment of carceral facilities. So it's not as much teaching instructors how to teach, right? But thinking about, okay, so you're used to teaching students in public schools or outside correctional facilities. There are obviously some similarities, but there are also some differences that we want to take into account. And we'll share a couple of examples of those specialized tracks. So I'll leave it to my colleague Emma again to share how do we train our tutors, and then I will talk about how we train our facilitators.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Kiara. Yeah, so this is a little bit more information about what our tutor training looks like Kiara was speaking about on the previous slide. We focus on the context of tutoring in carceral spaces for everyone. So everyone attends this day one training with modules 1 and 2, and then tutors will attend day 2, which is on the practice of tutoring in carceral spaces. And the training is, yes, across 2 days, 4 modules, and it's 5 hours total before they start tutoring. And then with an hour of regional program orientation where they learn more about what tutoring is going to look like at the site that they're tutoring at. And then also there are opportunities to continue learning during tutoring. So we continue to talk about the context of tutoring in carceral spaces through our Just Education series webinars and the practice of tutoring through our tutor development training. I have a couple more slides here. Yeah, you can go. Yeah, it's a little bit more information about module 2, because I thought this was particularly relevant to our conversation about being culturally responsive and training tutors to be culturally responsive in this space. So module 2 is our module in which volunteers spend a lot of time practicing cultural responsiveness by looking at different scenarios of how barriers to reentry and collateral impacts of the carceral state come up during tutoring sessions and might come up during tutoring sessions and how they might respond and support students through that. So here's some of the essential questions for that module to get a more sense of the content there. And then for module 4, this is our module, we talk about ethical volunteerism, intentional engagement. We also spend a lot of time in this module talking about trauma-informed practice and how we can minimize harm as much as possible when we're going in and out of carceral spaces. So that is also related to what I was talking about earlier with being culturally responsive as part of being trauma-informed as well.
And I want to emphasize one thing that we also talk about self-care strategies, tutoring, volunteering, working in correctional facilities is challenging for everybody. And I imagine that a lot of the spaces in which you will provide your services can also be challenging. And I think it's really important to help our facilitators, our volunteers, keep themselves in mind as they show up for the work. Our OST facilitators, as we said, attend the exact same first day as everybody else. But then in the second day, we dive deeper into how to navigate correctional facilities and how to work with on OST in particular. So we do spend quite a bit of time talking about how to navigate those highly bureaucratic not particularly transparent spaces that are correctional facilities. And logistics is always where you can have the best possible program, the amazing curriculum, and then the logistic gets you because you cannot get the supplies that you need inside the facility. But then we talk about working with youth in carceral facilities. Specifically, like I was saying, our facilitators, and I imagine yours as well, already come with a wealth of experience supporting youth in a variety of settings. So what we're really training them is how to apply those skills in an environment that is focused on security and is not always able to prioritize education. We talk about strategies to engage students. And we really talk about very practical strategies. Sometimes we even have little scripts for our facilitators, and those are really grounded in the experience of our regional staff and the people who are on the ground doing this work. So, for example, we talk about not all the students who may show up to your program have opted in. Sometimes they are just there because they're there. And so share a brief summary of your activity, try to engage them, and then go back to them once again to ask if they want to participate. So again, little strategies, little tips that make for a much more smoother and ultimately a more inclusive program. We also use a lot of scenarios, again informed by our experience and our work in this field. I'm going to skip the scenario because we have another one coming up. And the final section of our OST facilitator training also focuses on educational ethics, trauma-informed pedagogy. So it has a lot of those same elements that Emma shared that we teach our tutors. We talk about, what are topics that it's a good idea to discuss during with your with the youth that you're engaging. What are topics where it's better to redirect so we can establish really positive relationships while also maintaining boundaries. And again, we go back to the idea of this all is not a series of practices, but it is grounded in a trauma-informed approach to education and to youth engagement. And so again, we have a lot of those scenarios that help facilitators step into the shoes that they will be stepping on into once they start the program. One example that we have here is that a very engaged student, a student who's usually very engaged, shows up in a very different mood and finally shares that he doesn't want to participate because he and another student aren't getting along, and we practice and we facilitate a conversation around what's a good response to that. And what we're looking for here, it's certainly not there's no right response to this. It is a tricky situation, which is why we want to practice. An important thing is to approach this again in a way that is grounded in cultural responsiveness, trauma that is trauma informed, and that takes into account the barriers, the stressors that the student may be experiencing, and engages them in co-creating with the facilitator a safer space in which programming can happen in a generative way.
And so here are some strategies that we've come up with that we find are effective for developing trainings, effective in our trainings, and we've gotten feedback, which we'll have on the next slide too, from participants that they found these to be particularly effective. So yeah, we've talked a lot about, pre-readings, additional resources, also talked about the importance of collaborating with subject matter experts, colleagues who have expertise in the particular area to design and facilitate the training. Something else that Kiara was just mentioning too is setting clear expectations and also including specific strategies and language that folks can return to throughout their time running programming. They can go back and reference that. And then also something that Kiara was mentioning, looking at the scenarios, is providing as many opportunities as possible, not just for discussion, but also for practical application. So scenarios, practice activities, we find to be really effective in trainings. Also talking about, planning a manageable training length of time, that's always key, and collecting feedback is always key for effective training design. Yeah, and like I mentioned, here's some participant feedback. This is all feedback from our volunteer tutors who have completed our national pre-service training, and sort of what they found to be most useful in the training. So they responded that they found the scenarios to be useful. They enjoyed breakout room discussions. And also was really found it useful to hear from other participants too. Also specific strategies in mock tutoring. So you'll see sort of how those align with the list of effective training techniques that we shared in the previous slide. Cool. And so a little bit more information about the outcomes of our training, what feedback surveys and data we've collected so far from our trainings. And something too that I want to highlight that, we were talking about in preparation for this presentation is that, we all know that training takes a lot of time, takes a lot of resources, but it also sort of the outcomes, the amount of time and resources that it saves down the line is really worth it, which we can see here in the data. So we we survey all of our volunteers, collect feedback from volunteers and out of school time facilitators after the training. And after completing the national pre-service training, 97% of new volunteers say that they feel confident tutoring currently and formerly incarcerated people. After the training, there's definitely a growth between day 1 and day 2 there. You can go to the next slide too. Something else, I shared some of the content for Module 2 and Module 4 and pulled some specific goals that we had for those modules here. So talking about how confident do you feel identifying the collateral impacts of the carceral state and barriers to reentry, overwhelmingly folks feel very or quite confident being able to do that. So that means that they're feeling more prepared to provide a culturally responsive service. And then related to Module 4, thinking about how confident they feel utilizing trauma-informed approaches during tutoring. Again, overwhelmingly folks felt very confident, quite confident going into programming after our training.
And of course, this hard data is always very helpful, but we also have more anecdotal evidence of the impact that our trainings are having on our facilitators, and in particular the subcontractor and OST facilitator training that we implemented. We've seen it increase their ability to operate in carceral environments independently, with more limited assistance from our staff. Of course, we're always there to support them, but it is smoother and better for everybody if people are able to advocate for themselves and to navigate this space in a way that is more autonomous. We offered strategies to, like we said, increase engage youth, manage sessions, and supported our facilitators in building a relationship with the youth, again, in this challenging space. And we really see how being culturally responsive makes such a huge difference. We have had facilitators who had amazing curriculum, like very structured, hit all the goals, but then in practice they were not able to implement it as well as others because they were not finding the way to resonate with the students. So it doesn't help to have the best curriculum if the students are not paying attention, they're wandering off, and they're leaving the space, or they're just retreating into their inner words. And so I think that is really a testimony of the importance of having this active engagement with the students. I want to call on my colleague Ray. I know we don't have that much time left, but Ray, in a couple of words, you're the one who has witnessed the most our facilitators. So can you share some of the successes that we have seen from having more culturally responsive facilitators in these OSC spaces?
Well, to answer that question, it's been great to see subcontractors working with our incarcerated youth, because over time, after the comprehensive training that we've done with them and orientaments into facilities, they've actually been able to build rapport not only with the students that they're serving, but also the facility staff. So we've had success outcomes where each subcontractor actually had a culmination event where they've been able to showcase whatever skills and talents that their program may have been offering throughout that semester or that cohort, and they've been able to actually showcase it to the facility and other maybe outside members like family members and stuff like that. They're able to show for the students. So we have noticed that when we're bringing people from the kids communities, like in the DC community, that we have had a successful turnout in the sense with engagement, participation with the youth that we're working with as well. So it has been great to see that.
Thank you, Ray. Yes, and I also want to elevate the fact that really being culturally responsive, like, literally means responding to the students, and the key to responding is actually, asking, what do you want? What programs do you want? Our most successful programs have always been the programs that the youth have asked, and that's obvious and natural. It's again hard to create the space for students to express what do they need. Students not always know know what types of programs do they want, especially youth who are in resource scarce environments like correctional spaces. But if you ask, you really establish a dialogue. It turns out a lot of our students wanted music production. And so we brought music production, and that really increased the engagement versus other programs that we thought would be great, but they were just not ready to receive in the same way. And I want to wrap us up here. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we have an open request for proposal. So if all of those made you interested in offering out of school time programming in carceral facilities, please consider submitting a proposal for to collaborate with us over the summer. The deadline is April 18. I promise it is a pretty straightforward application, and we have an info session tomorrow. I will drop in the chat the link to our website where you can find all this information.
Kiara, I've already done so. So there's a link to your website as
Amazing.
well as the link to the information for the proposal.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if you want to learn more about us, there's our website. Please subscribe to our newsletter. And of course, you can stay in touch over social media. I will stop sharing. Thank you so much. Happy to hear any questions. And I know the OST also team also has, yeah, it can answer your questions.
I have a question. Hi, this is Jackie Carter. First, I want to say thank you for the great work you guys are doing in helping the young people. So amazing. Where are the young people located? Where is this actually done? I'm sorry if I missed that part.
Yeah, no, thank you. That is a great question. So they are at the DC jail, which is sort of in central DC, at the Youth Services Center, which is still in the DC urban area, and New Beginnings, which is in Laurel, Maryland.
And what's the age group of the children, and how long are they committed inside the system?
The age group technically can be as young as 12. The majority of our youth are actually between 16 and 18, I would say, and they can go to being in their early 20s. Yeah, and how long they are there, it really varies. It varies by facility. We have youth who are there for a few days to a few months, to youth who are committed for longer. Usually, once they're committed for longer, they age out of the youth services centers and they move into the DC jail.
And the ones who you may not know this, but the ones who transition out of jail and come back to so the real world, I guess. Is there some program set up to help them sort of matriculate through that process, or they just turn them out and let them go?
We're working on it. I mean, the DYRS, the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, and the DCDOC have systems to support people in transition. We right now we're focused on serving students inside, but certainly one of our goals is to build that pipeline. And a lot of our subcontractors are operating both inside and outside, so people can then continue to work with the same facilitators and the same groups once they're released.
That's it for me. Thank you so much, and thank you for that great work you guys are doing. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agreed. And I just want to say, it's so good to hear this conversation, Jackie, and that you asked those questions, because I had a conversation with folks at School Safety at DME earlier this week, and they work with the Students in Care of DC in General program, and we were talking about the work of Petey Green as a grantee that serves students in the care of DC for current youth that are incarcerated, but we were looking at how do we tier it on the back end and the front end and really ensure that our OST providers on the front end are doing preventative care, right, through a social emotional supports, building, that perhaps more into our grants opportunities, as well as on the back end, to your point, Jackie. What do we do? How do we connect them to resources for out of school time programming once they leave that continues that continuation of care? So great questions.
It would be just ideal if there was a way, as organizations are partnering with a PGP. Is it PGP?
Yep.
Thank you. As organizations are partnering with PGP, that whatever students they're working with could remain a part of that cohort even
Yeah.
after they transition out, so that that relationship or even that so weaning back into the community is a smoother transition than not. That would be great.
Absolutely. And we are doing it in some of our other regions. It takes, honestly, it just takes time and funding to build it in new places. But I agree, it is crucial because we don't want people to go back to the patterns and environments that led them to incarceration in the first place.
You know, there's I don't know if Tashana is on this call, but when I was working with DYRS some years back, one of the things that I learned about the young people are the two things. The first thing is that they were well versed in the lingo of the criminal justice system. So I had organized a debate on what caused the fall of the Marcus Garvey movement. And the conversation steered so far away from that to how young people are treated in the system, how they are treated in the courts. I mean, they were just so well versed that I was learning, right? So I don't know. Well, the second other part was the creativity. So I'm with a couple of kids. This was some years back. I'm with a couple of kids going to advocate for them in the court system, so that they could, instead of being placed someplace out of state, they could be placed in state. That way they could still come to our program. As I'm walking down the hall with the 12-year-old, he shows me his artwork on the wall on the in the court and there's his artwork hanging in the wall. He's 12. So I'm like, well, when did you do that? You know, he did that when he was 9. So he's been a part of the system for a long time. The organization, I remember the conversation so clearly because I was just like, well, why didn't you continue to do your art? And he said they left. They didn't come around anymore. So that is, I guess, a signal to us to make sure that we are providing some type of continuity for them so that they don't get discouraged and fall between, especially after they make build a relationship with organizations, that we can keep that going. Well, there's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Jackie. Honestly, that was really insightful points you brought up. And just when we think about as school time providers and long-term impact, long-term goals, trying to have a footprint in the community, but also making, a real substantive presence in the lives of young people impacted by trauma and all the challenges that they can't control. So I really like, I have to commend Kiara and Ray and Emma and your presentation today, and looking at the focus, the trauma-informed pedagogy, seeing the commitment of your organization to continuous learning, and the fact that your whole organization is involved in this kind of professional development process. So it reverberates around your approach to the work infrastructurally, which I think is just really tremendous on your end. And I did see that Simon from Open Gold Project had his hand up earlier. So Simon, do you have a question? If you are still with us, Simon Linda. Like his hand dropped, but you're welcome to reach out, Simon, if your question comes back to you. The one thing I did want to highlight real quickly, Kiara, before we all adjourn, was the focus you noted on the well-being of your staff, the focus on ensuring that your staff can mitigate their own personal challenges when they engage with this challenging population, and of course, being responsive to youth needs. So it takes, a lot of support there. And so I'm just curious to know how any best practices you might want to impart onto OST providers, grantees, presence on how to prioritize that staff well-being.
Emma, I feel you're the best person to respond to that question.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about that. I mean, I think when we, in our trainings with both volunteers, but then also out of school time facilitators, we spend a lot of time defining what self-care is, brainstorming together what self-care strategies are, and, thinking about when and why you might want to implement those self-care strategies. And then throughout our time, particularly with our volunteers, we spend a lot of time debriefing and always have availability to answer questions. Volunteers have come up, reflect with them, decompress as needed. And, we offer the same for staff as well. I think our community of staff is really supportive, really engaged, continuing to learn together, like you were saying, Mark. So I think that's sort of how we approach it.
And I think just to add, it's really important. We also have a version of longer version of the training on self-care that's called Radical Self-Care, that really emphasizes that self-care is not like marketable, is not like, oh, buying that fancy candle, right? Or it is really building community with other people, is reaching out for support, filling your own cup so you can fill others, and are building routines that help you reflect on the experiences that you have just lived through. And so it is really something that takes practice, and takes community, I would say, and support from each other, and that we're here to provide that support.
Can I just add another thing, if it's okay, Mark? It's Jackie again. I'm glad to hear you talk about it from that perspective, because I know when I was doing that work with DYRS, it was really hard sometimes to leave them there. No, you have to leave them there. You can't, because once you get to know the kids, you kind of see that wrong place, wrong time, bunch of just unfortunate things happening all at once, and they're in a situation where they're in jail. But you get to know a really sweet kid, a really nice kid, and you have to leave them there. And sometimes that can weigh on you emotionally. So happy to hear that. So are you all doing that kind of work with people who agree to go in there and make bonds with these kids, and you have to, and they're so young, and you have to leave them there. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that is really important. We reflect a lot on what it means to leave the facility, and also like while doing that, we also want to acknowledge the fact that the youth themselves do not get to leave us. So it is important to prioritize your own self-care while also remaining aware of your position of privilege that you do get to leave. And this can be a hard tension to hold, but I think it is an extremely important one. I think Pastor Gary Hill had their hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, and I concur and thank you so much for the work that you're doing, particularly in challenged communities. I really like the spin that you put on earlier about the cultural piece, even as it relates to supporting your staff. And so I guess my question is, during the support and with the emphasis on making sure that your staff is healthy, for organizations also who work with OST resources like our organization in challenged communities, where there's a lot of violence and shootings and those types of things that are taking place. Do you bring in an independent contractors in to help therapeutically and clinically, like Ms. Jackie was saying, emotionally, to deal with your internal team? Can you speak just a little bit briefly in terms of what that support looks like, and if OST will fund part of your grant resources will fund that being able to bring someone in to support your staff. Excuse me.
Thank you. So we don't regularly bring in external contractors that provide that type of support. We do, for example, we regularly have all staff meetings across our regions, and we always have a session on self-care there where we do bring in experts in the field. In one last year that was very helpful for me, that focused on establishing routines and making space and time for self-care, for example. I will say, I think as an organization we encourage people to make and take that space and that time, so that they can create those practices for themselves, or reach out and get support as needed. So, you know, things are using flex time, having plenty of sick time. Those seem like very basic things, but I think are crucial, because as always, at the end of the day, it's kind of the logistic and the practice that gets you. If you talk a lot about getting support, but you don't may have time for that, it's not getting where it needs to go. And Norma, yes, do you want to share that?
Yeah, just adding that there's a lot of, like Kiara has been emphasizing community a lot, and how there's healing and processing vicarious trauma through that. And a lot of that is done on the university campuses. So there are a lot of the tutors at the PD Green program come from our local universities. And so a lot of the community building happens amongst those tutors, and in terms of sometimes the greater community is invited to some of those activities and events as well. And just having that space to debrief, especially when PD Green staff are there to help guide what those debriefs look like, and to sometimes have some of the tutors meet amongst themselves with campus leaders that have been trained by the PD Green program. And those campus leaders, when they hear things come up, they'll elevate concerns to the PD Green program staff, and PD Green program staff can then do individual support with those tutors as well. And then also referring those tutors to mental health services, or encouraging everyone to be taking care in these ways.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norma.
For sharing, Norma. It's really, I think, acutely relevant to hear the insights, and just honestly, from your experience with P Green, and of course, I mean, this presentation, I think this opens up a great opportunity for OST collaboration. I hope some folks who are online today will follow up to express interest if they are looking to collaborate with P Green, and to note the info session taking place tomorrow. Shanna did put that in the chat. Also, the OST office has our own subcontractor interest form, which is also in the chat, which we presented upon in our previous office hours meeting. But you ever interested in working with a coordinating entity such as P Green or Pastor Hill's organization, Exodus Treatment Center, who are doing tremendous work in vulnerable communities, I think it's a great opportunity for collaboration, because youth development is very much a partnership as well as a process. And Kiara, Emma, Ray, do you all have any parting words that you'd like to leave today after your wonderful presentation?
Just thank you so much for listening and participating and sharing your experiences. Please do not hesitate to reach out. I put my email address in the chat, and yeah, we look forward to working with you, getting to know you better, and continuing to build this space together.
I'd like to also just put a plug in. Please, I highly encourage everyone to apply, or to at least ask questions if you're considering applying and you're hesitant, because these students really need amazing programming on the inside. And they'll only get that if your organization is open to, adapting what you already do, the amazing work that you already do with students on the outside, to the environment that's on the inside. It's all the more needed, and just encourage you to receive the support from the PD Green program, apply, and bring your programming in.
Absolutely. Please do could not have said it better. And if you're nervous about entering the space, like, we are here to support you. That is literally our job and what we are funded for as the coordinating entity. So we're not going to drop you into this new world. We'll be there with you to support you and make sure that you can bring your expertise and your services to incarcerated students who very much need them.
Thank you, Kiara. Thank you, Ray, Emma. Really fantastic presentation. You all are doing tremendous work, and these young people can hopefully greatly benefit. And as they do reach upon their transitions, and I think the discussions they were robust and really indicative of recognizing this holistic approach you take to cultural responsiveness and youth development. So really grateful for your presence here today
Thank you.
and partnership with the OST office.
Yeah, thank you to the OC office for your partnership and your support.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we are well over time, everyone. So definitely kudos to the P Green program. I would relay to all who are present to, inquire with your grants management specialist if you have any grant related questions. If there are any pressing questions at this time, we can allow a couple minutes for quick Q&A. Does anyone have anything that's urgent that they think be brought to the collective's attention, or something that you are not sure of that you might need support? Do you think your grant manager could help you with? Anything pressing that you'd like to inquire upon this time?
I have a question. I don't know if it's pressing or not. I'll leave you to determine that.
Okay.
But what's the difference between my after I don't know, the new portal and City Span?
Yes.
Are both of those going to exist at the same time, or are we weaning in one, weaning out the other one?
Oh, that's a great question, Jackie. So CitySpan, of course, is our grants management system, and the Most DC portal is our public-facing portal to provide the opportunity for families to kind of gain a sense of what programs exist. So the goal of the portal is to include all out-of-school time programs beyond just the out-of-school time office grantees, but all OST programs. So programs funded by DPR and other DC agencies, DC Commission on Arts and Humanity, et cetera, but even providers that might not be funded. And, there's several phases taking place. So the goal is to get all out of school time programs on the portal and to give families an opportunity to identify programs that suit the interests of their child or close proximity to their residence or near the school. So it's more of a public facing engagement tool. And of course, as you all know, CitySpan, of course, is our grant management system to ensure that you all capture youth data, provide adequate reporting, keep track of staff compliance, et cetera.
And will we be able to put I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Question, go on.
For the My After School DC portal, that's what it's called?
My Out of School Time DC, MOST. Yes.
MOST, okay. Will grantees be able to put a link on our website to that link, or they can only get to it from, like, people come on my website all the time looking for stuff for their kids. So I think it would be great to have a link on my website that could take them to that link, just in case they got 4 or 5 kids, not everybody want to do theater.
No, that's a great point, Jackie. And for one, of course, you can certainly feature the portal on your website. However, I'm including our colleague Tab Burnett's email in the chat because I'm not privy to all the technical aspects on the back end, but there might be a way to hyperlink your organization specifically in the portal, because every organization, you all will have your own kind of landing page you'll see, as you hopefully have seen thus far. But I think it's a great approach maybe to hyperlink your program specifically where it is in the portal so families can find it. So I'll definitely check in also with our other colleagues to see what's possible there, but you're welcome to follow up with Tab on that matter. And hopefully we can work it out, but I think that's a great suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. RJ, you have a quick question?
Hi, yes. I've had one of my staff people in the training, and the concern for us is we're not a front-facing program. Like, we only provide services within the schools that we have a current partnership with. So I did have a weird email that I got earlier this month from a parent at Minor Elementary inquiring about joining our program.
Mhm.
And I didn't know, I responded to it, but then afterwards we had this training and I was thinking, well, maybe she had gotten my information off of the site. I don't know how
Mhm.
many people have access to it, if it's just us or if it's out in the public yet. But what can we do for those programs that do not just accept people who need it? Like,
Yeah,
it's like we're very specific.
I
So is there a
understand.
way for us not to be on the site if we don't need that type of branding?
Yes, no, I fully understand. And there's a lot of programs, a lot of providers in similar situations that have direct school partnerships that the school directly enrolls youth, and that ultimately you're not recruiting because you're working with your partner school just to have enrollment kind of intercede in your program. In situations like that, one, it does provide public awareness of your programming. I hope that is your program at Minor.
No, her program's at Ketchum and Randall Highlands, and then they
Uh-huh.
have a site over the summer.
Uh,
RJ, to answer your question, your UPO's program should be designated as school-based, which means that only youth who are enrolled at that school can then be in your program. I can double check the portal and send an email to Tab if that's not the case, because that would be something that needs to be resolved. It would be similar for like After School All Stars, which is at specific schools. So then it should say school-based and it's color coded. So the ones that are open to anybody are red. The ones that are DPR are green, and then the ones that are limited to schools, so school-based, would be blue. So UPO should be blue. I'm gonna double check and I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Valid question, though, RJ. Thank you for bringing this attention. Hopefully, Camille's explanation provides some clarification for others online. Pastor Hill, you have a quick question?
It always does. Camila's great.
Thank you. She is. I second that.
Sorry, Mark. Let me raise my hand. Let me take it
No
down.
problem.
Sorry.
Okay. So if no other questions, we are going to wrap for today because we are a bit over time, and I know everyone has a lot of pressing things to do. I just put the most website in the chat. Hopefully that works for everyone. most.dc.gov. Please follow up with our colleague Tab Burnett, who can ensure that you are licensed, adequately set up. And then, of course, your grants management specialist should be able to provide you ongoing portal support, correspondence to help field those questions. But we thank you all for your partnership and presence today. Keep up the fantastic work serving youth and families, District of Columbia. We're grateful for your presence in the district, and stay strong, stay focused, and just remember the young people are there for you. And the reason why we're all here doing this work today. So thank you all again. And we'll definitely distribute a copy of today's presentation. Super shout out to the PD Green program, who did a phenomenal job representing for youth and juvenile justice system and promoting cultural responsiveness. So we're grateful for everyone's presence, and we look forward to catching up soon. And please check in with your grants management specialist if you have any grant related questions, and keep up the great work. Take care, everyone.